Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I am so happy to have back on the line two of my favorite people in the world, at least the people from Truth Media, not fake news media. Aaron and Melissa Dykes from Truth Stream Media. Guys, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having us again.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I know you guys have been so busy on your documentaries, and frankly, the YouTube videos you guys put up are bar none among the best in Truth Media. I just love it. And I just thought what we should talk about here as we wrap up 2016 and we face the onslaught of 2017 and this move to ban Truth Media, which is really what it is. I thought we should talk about fake news, and I'll just kick it off here with a soundbite from Google CEO Sundar Pichai. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but as you guys noted before we started, Eric Schmidt moved on to, what is it called, you guys? ABC?
Alphabet, which is a new parent. It's the new parent company for Google. So it's a step above Google now. Yeah. They call it Alphabet, which I think is actually super creepy.
It is. They're moving us towards Skynet. I think Google and Alphabet.
Basically.
It implies the control of language altogether.
It does. Okay, well, here's Google CEO Sundar telling us that they are going to judge who is and who is not fake news, and here's how they're going to treat it.
From our perspective, there should just be no situation in which fake news gets distributed. Just in the last 2 days, we announced that we will remove advertising from anything we identify as fake news.
Okay, and that begs the question, who is identifying fake news? What constitutes fake news? Is it just anything that's contrary to Hillary Clinton and State Department talking points? Your guys' thoughts on all of this, and have you seen any residual effects already?
I mean, just today, I tried to put up an article about how the Amazon Echo is recording all of everyone's conversations in the house, and police are accessing that data. The Anti-Media did a whole story on that, and we republished it over at the Daily Sheeple, and we tried to share that on Facebook, and it was automatically blocked the second that we tried to put it up, which was only minutes after it had been published. And there was just there's no recourse for that. It just brings up a screen. It says, this URL cannot be shared. It has been blocked, and that's all you have. That's it. They just block that information. And so it's not even just the immediate censorship. It's what they're choosing to censor that it makes it all the more Orwellian nightmare, in my opinion.
And you don't know how far they're going to go with this exact talking point, but we've seen historically they're always clamping down on dissenters at the very time when things we reach a critical point, and they're not going to just openly say, well, we've outlawed dissent, so everyone who doesn't believe in us, they're gone. They have to have an excuse. And it's a very thin excuse, and it's disingenuous and backhanded, but they're using it to basically rule who gets to have a say, and it's obvious how hypocritical it is. The Brian Williams example alone is just
I mean,
ridiculous.
I don't know if you saw, I think it was last week, Obama said the alternative media are, quote, what did he say? Propagandists. He said domestic propagandists. He called us domestic propagandists the way that you would say domestic terrorism.
Right.
So that kind of it's like we're all being transported back to the Cold War. And instead of the Red Scare now, which actually they tried, and then that failed really hard. Because remember when they did the whole prop or not Russian propaganda thing, and everyone's sites were listed as Russian propaganda. Well, that didn't really work so well. So now they're just going to keep going with fake news, which is not working either because it's kind of backfiring in the mainstream media's face. But anyway, regardless, they're just going to keep going with this. And he just signed some new law about domestic propaganda and fighting propaganda. So now we're going to get to a point where, because all of our communication, a lot of it is primarily online, and we get our news online and all this kind of stuff, the gray area between reality and fiction is just going to explode, and it's going to be hard to know if anything we're seeing, eventually it's going to be hard to know if anything we're seeing is real.
Yeah, he signed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act into law a week or two ago, and it was under the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act. I got the benefit of the article here in front of me. It's S2943, but buried within that was this more specific act. A bill to implement the U.S.'s very own de facto Ministry of Truth has been quietly introduced in Congress. H.R. 5181 seeks a whole government approach without the bureaucratic restrictions to counter foreign disinformation and manipulation. I'll just end it there because you guys know as well as I do that RT on YouTube is a very successful channel, and generally speaking, in my opinion, they convey more truth in terms of what's going on geopolitically than does CNN or Fox or MSNBC. And so RT is very much in the crosshairs of the government because RT is backed by Russia. But in my opinion, it's the State Department, it's Hillary Clinton, it's the corruption at the top of our own government that is spewing the endless propaganda. That's why this is so Orwellian, because now
Well,
they get
don't
to
forget
choose.
they're literally in the propaganda business, overseas especially.
That's right.
And if you go back to the NDAA for 2013 that Obama also signed, they put a thing in there reversing the Smith-Mundt Act
Right.
from 1948, which basically gives the State Department now free reign and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to disseminate domestic propaganda, whatever they want, sky's the limit, and their budgets have increased hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, whenever we're told anything about what's going on in Syria, or if you weren't there, actually, at this point, if you weren't there yourself, you really can't just automatically believe anything that this government is saying at this point, because they've stacked the deck to lie to everyone to further whatever their agenda is. And in that case, it's obviously regime change and more war. But whatever they need to do domestically, if they want to advance, for example, mandatory vaccination agenda, then they'll promote fear-mongering over, say, the Disneyland measles thing. Remember when that happened? This kind of stuff. And yeah, exactly. RT, they want to call it out and say a bunch of stuff, but RT actually talks about things that none of our mainstream media will, because I'm sure they're given talking points and lists of things that they can and can't talk about, whatever the establishment wants. And so, I don't know if you saw that clip. It was probably like a month ago. One of the RT reporters was at the State Department press conference, and I think it was John Kirby who straight up said, I'm not even going to recognize RT I'm not going to answer their questions. I'm not going to recognize them as journalists anymore. And the military has stopped allowing RT to go to any of the American military press conferences where they talk about technology and different things they're doing. They have actually kicked RT out of those. That came out. And so they're really doing this, and they're really trying to suck the alternative media in with this Russian propaganda Red Scare thing they're doing. It didn't really work, but they definitely tried, and it was the Washington Post that came out with that article declaring, prop or not. And I don't know if you've probably talked a lot about prop or not already, but they declared all of these alternative media sites are Russian propaganda, and then the Washington Post splayed that out everywhere. And what's not being said about that is the fact that the Washington Post is a regular attendee at Bilderberg,
Right.
and Jeff Bezos is as well, and he's actually taken out giant hundreds of millions of dollar contracts with the CIA to provide them with clouds for their data. So he has a vested interest in not telling the truth. Their company does, but they're the real media, right? And the alternative media, we're all just domestic propagandists.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned to Bill Holter in a call recently, as we talked about some of this, and he knows me very well for many, many, many years, and he knows I don't speak Russian. He knows that I don't know anybody from Russia, and he probably could guess I've never received a check from anybody in Russia. So for us to be on that list is absolutely beyond the pale. When you mention the Washington Post, Mike Krieger, I think, calls it Bezos blog, or maybe it's my friend David Kranzler, because he just bought the whole newspaper. And you're right, he's in bed with the CIA in business, so it's government in bed with quasi-secret deep state government. It's the absolute definition of fascism. And I think in the interest of real news, I should play this clip for you guys. It's from George Webb, and I've been posting all of these at the Phaser and at SGT Report. And he asks on a daily basis, today being day 67, where is Eric Braverman, the former CEO of the Clinton Foundation, who went into hiding, and by some accounts, he's either under FBI protection or he fled to Russia for political asylum because of the things he found out at the Clinton Foundation. So let's just play a minute or two of this clip. You guys can jump in and interrupt at any point, or I'll just play it for a while because I think it's so compelling. And what George Webb does here is he is using the public information that has been shared by Seymour Hersh, who he says deserves a Pulitzer or several Pulitzers, and a couple of other reporters who he also says deserve Pulitzers. So this is really not his opinion. The things he's talking about here are facts. And tell me if this sounds like fake news to you or real news. And then you tell me if you think you'd hear about any of this from CNN.
Okay, day 67. No Eric Braverman, no Neil Brown, no Mark Turi. The key question I asked yesterday is, did Neil Brown and Eric Braverman know that Hillary was contracting through the Clinton Foundation to hire the Muslim Brotherhood to take the Stingers and knock out Gaddafi's jets and planes with help of a mercenary army of Delta Force. And then with that same mercenary army fire off sarin gas into the populated centers of Syria, using them as human shields and as a kind of a sex trafficking source of young children. That's a pretty damning series of connections, but if you watch this series, you're going to see kind of this orgy of evidence that, yes, that's exactly what happened. So the key question is, did they know? And if you also establish a pattern or modus operandi of an organization, you're going to see down below that this Otpor organization that Hillary was working with way back in Syria, and I'm not talking about Bill, I'm talking about Hillary, was working with Otpor to destabilize Yugoslavia, to break up Yugoslavia into Bosnia, Herzegovina, Kosovo, Croatia, all the Montenegro, all the different split-ups for the NATO generals. So she's been working this with the NATO generals for 20 years. This idea of disrupt and then bring in NATO for order. You can watch yesterday's issue for that.
I'll pause it there, guys. But let me ask you this. As educated as you guys are about the Clinton Foundation, Hillary Clinton, the deep state, have you ever seen the deep state so blatantly obvious now? And a report like this makes you understand the ins and outs of the deep state. Hillary Clinton. We'd never hear about this from CNN, would we?
Absolutely not. If that guy isn't not in hiding, he's probably dead. I would think.
You mean Eric Braverman?
Yes.
Yeah. Your thoughts, though, on any of that? I've been calling this George Webb series the most important video series on YouTube right now because, again, this is day 67. He's done at least one of these a day, and sometimes they're done in 2 and 3 parts. The information is encyclopedic. It's so broad, it's so detailed, it names names, and this guy's put it all together in this series. And it all goes back to Hillary Clinton, doesn't it?
There's just no end to the corruption that's inside these systems, and all the stuff that came out with drug trafficking and Iran-Contra ties that's been through both the Bush and Clinton administrations. It's all still around. It's the same network of people, and they've gotten more sophisticated. They're in all these financial vehicles. Probably the Clinton Foundation is more complex than the biggest known mafia case in history, whichever one that would even be.
Right.
It's
I would say that's why we're seeing all this damage control right now, because if aside from everything else that happened in 2016, there is, for sure, conspiracy theorists that we always get called in the pejorative term. We've all been vindicated by so many of the things that came out in the WikiLeaks. And that's the one thing, all of these mainstream media outlets, they never directly attack the stuff that's in WikiLeaks, hardly ever. Maybe with the Pizzagate thing, that being aside, everything else that came out, they don't directly ever address it. They just immediately say, oh, Russian hacking. And I actually think at this point that some of the stuff that came out was so damning, and it probably goes to such high levels globally that they pretty much have to damage control that, shut it down, and would even start a war just to change the narrative away from focusing on some of that stuff. Because, you had things like pay for play coming out. There was one WikiLeaks that specifically talked about a rich donor wanting to know about executive orders for gun control, I think it was. Insane, the level of corruption, just completely insane. And so now, I think almost everything we're seeing in response is like a continuity of government, damage control, CYA kind of thing, cover your ass, just because they don't, what else can they do? This stuff is in print.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me how much, just even on the surface, the Hillary Clinton campaign clearly was negotiating questions. They had journalists in their pocket. There were talking points repeated on probably several dozen news stations, all using the same exact wording. It's everything else that goes with that. And they have the gall to push around this fake news narrative. And I just came across this yesterday. I don't know if you had heard about this before, but George Soros, who's behind funding all these fact-checking organizations and Media Matters and all this stuff, which ties back into the same network, he's got a narrative now that's gone even farther than I've seen saying that Putin has been bringing about these things for years. And he at first tried to, quote, control social media, but then in a brilliant move, he exploited all of social media and their company business models to spread misinformation and fake news, which disorientated the electorate and destabilized our democracy. And that is how he helped Trump get elected.
Well, isn't that hilarious, too? I mean, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, right? George Soros is going to call out Putin for being the manipulator when George Soros is essentially a Rothschild puppet. And I've been saying forever during the election, which is why I was pro-Trump and anti-Clinton, because I know how evil Hillary Clinton is. I can't say for sure if Trump will do the things he said. I can't say if he'll even be a constitutional president. But I know that she is friends with the Rothschilds, literally friends with the Rothschilds, who held $100,000 per head fundraisers for her. And then the WikiLeaks emails vetted out the close personal ties with Lady Rothschild between she and Hillary. And I think what's crazy about it is that the WikiLeaks emails have demonstrated for anyone paying attention that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, her husband Bill, who, we got the whole Lolita Express pedophile thing tied in with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill. Charles Ortel has called the Clinton Foundation the biggest charity fraud in the history of the world. And you guys will recall that Hillary, when I think she was starting to be fearful she might not win the election, said, we're all going to be hanging from nooses, if this thing doesn't go our way. And I'm paraphrasing, but now we see that a federal appeals court has revived the Hillary email case, leaving key decision to Trump's attorney general. This came out on December 28th. Again, big news, because she didn't even turn over all of the emails. She committed perjury in front of Congress. She's a traitor. The WikiLeaks emails prove to us that she's a traitor. We know about the child trafficking issues in Haiti through the Clinton Foundation when the Clintons themselves came to the rescue of Laura Silsby, who was caught for trying to traffic 33 children out of Haiti. She said they were orphans. They were not. She went to jail. Yeah. And Donald Trump tweeted on the 27th, listen to this, got to do something about these missing children grabbed by the perverts. Too many incidents. Fast trial, death penalty. If he could deliver on any of that promise, it would be a joyous day, in my opinion.
But he's friends with them, too. I mean, so I don't know. I guess I'm in the camp of people who don't have a lot of faith that he's about to save the day. I mean, as far as the Hillary case, the two most pertinent questions right now, will Obama give her a pardon, even though it'll look really bad? Yeah. And two, would Trump or his attorney general or anyone else in the system be allowed or have the wherewithal to pursue this stuff? Because, again, it does relate back to the deep state. And I don't know. I know a lot of people are very celebratory about the Trump win, certainly compared with Hillary, but the appointments have been straight out of the deep state and straight out of Wall Street and the same network. So it's very concerning about if any change will be coming.
Yeah.
Which I hope I'm not bursting any bubbles, But at the same time, we've kind of got this bill coming due because we all know what Obama's done with the debt for all these years. And now the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. It almost looks like a double bind. It could even be revenge of the system. I mean, do you feel like they're going to dump that stuff during the next term, or it's hard to know?
I continue to cite, and listeners are probably getting sick of this at this point, but the 1988 cover of the Rothschild Economist magazine, which said, get ready for a world currency in 2018. Okay, that's a year away now. And I think we're headed that way. I mean, there's definitely panic behind the scenes. It's not even behind the scenes anymore. There's so much panic that they're trying to move us cashless at warp speed.
Warp speed.
Yeah, and people are going to fall for it, is my fear. And what are they using as the catalyst to get people to fall for it? They're saying, we're going to fight corruption by banning your cash. I mean, there's nothing more absurd because we know that HSBC and Wells Fargo and the other criminal international banks have
they
paid.
Launder this cash.
They've laundered the cash for the Mexican drug cartels. They're in the corruption up to their necks, and yet they're going to target our fiat cash. Now, that's not even our gold and silver at this point. It's the bankster fiat cash that we get to use, and they're going to take that from us. What will we be then? Serfs, right?
We will be, and I'm thinking of Brzezinski in Between Two Ages, his book from back in the 70s, and other statements I've read from these banks trying to figure out what is going on with that money laundering. And I really feel like after a certain threshold, with big enough players, obviously they're going to be politically connected. Godfather movie, they buy off all the politicians. Presumably that's going on. But at a certain point, even the money laundering for the drug gangs and the cartels is seen as a sense of stability from the banker's point of view because of the amount of transactions going through, because it's being cleared through their bank. They just see it ultimately as another asset. And even if it's outside of law, if it's still sort of within the framework of the society they're building, it still sort of serves their power. And yet, the individual people, they can just deal with the consequences. What do they care if hundreds of millions of people in India are without a way to do business and trade and sell their things and buy things because they're not allowed to even have cash? A workable, it'd be like having a $20 banknote here.
The EU just changed their rules too about confiscating cash and gold at borders under the guise of fighting terrorism. And it used to be, it had to be over 10,000 euros or whatever, but now they've changed it. It's any amount. They can just confiscate just because possibly you're a terrorist. And that's it. They don't even have to have real evidence. And that was just being reported in Reuters last week. So, yeah, they're moving everyone towards this cashless grid at warp speed. And really it's because that's it. That's the last way they have to really fully get everyone onto a grid and control every person. Mm-hmm. And I just keep thinking about that Sandra Bullock movie, The Net. It just keeps coming back to my head how they can flip a switch then in the computer and turn off your access. Because these cities of the future that they're talking about building, and Davos is really into this. We have a report coming up about this, where they're talking about how in 2030, you'll just live in the city and everything you do will be tracked, traced, and monitored, including your dreams while you sleep at night. And you will own nothing. You will not even own your own clothing. This is what what was it? The ambassador? No, not the ambassador of Denmark.
Member of Parliament, I think.
Member of Parliament. I can't keep all these people straight sometimes, but she wrote a whole piece and did a presentation for Davos this year about how they're going to live in this wonderful city of 2030, and it's going to be so great when everyone basically owns nothing. You own nothing. You don't even own your own house or your own apartment that you rent. When you're not using your living room, people are using it for business meetings. When you're not sleeping there, someone else is sleeping there. You own nothing. And to move about this city, you're going to have some kind of, chip or digital tattoo, whatever it is they decide to give everyone, or, which I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you saw recently how they've moved everyone to this chip card where your bank card now has a chip on the front of the card, and they always like, oh, do you have the chip?
Yeah.
And when you pay for something now, do you have the chip? It has to go like this. I don't even know how that makes it any more secure than swiping it, but whatever. It's just getting everyone programmed and ready, because that's how the future is going to be. You will have one access point that will have all of your data on it, and to move about, to travel, to buy anything, you're going to have that. And that's this world they're going to build.
Well, and every transaction is surveillance in itself. That data means a great deal. And just think, if you put two and two together, if so-called fake news is banned and you can't use certain words, let's say Pizzagate, just for talking, are they going to be shutting down your bank account in the future because you're having unauthorized speech online?
Because you said something that was hate speech.
Right.
Well, you get fake news.
Well, you know what's scary? This is our dystopian future coming into clear view, and Aaron Russo warned us about all of this, and now we see it happening. We knew it was going to happen, but now we actually see it happening. And it reminds me of Tom Cruise in the movie Minority Report. They tell us what the future looks like. It looks bleak, and now here it comes, and they're going to roll it out. In this 2030, you keep mentioning 2030, you're right, it's Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 2030. They used to call it UN Agenda 21. Now they've sort of rebranded it as UN Agenda 2030, which is this dystopian future which you've just described, herding the sheeple people, the serfs, into big giant cities, big giant control grids, and freeing up the rest of the land for the elite, essentially.
They're saying you can't you won't own clothes. They're saying you will not own anything. Nothing will be yours. You will have no control over anything. Even the things you are dreaming at night in your subconscious while you sleep, in your unconscious mind, they're going to be monitoring that stuff. Meanwhile, do you think the billionaires of the planet, the 0.0001%, aren't going to own their own underwear? But this is the world I wish I was exaggerating when I say this, but this is the presentation this woman gave. And literally, you won't even own your own clothes. I can't get over it, how they're going to...
Of course they're not going to. Al Gore couldn't even travel to his own conferences on CO2 without private jets and limos and
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the world that they're pushing everyone towards, and one of my big concerns is that to have a paradigm shift like that is huge, because since World War II, they've been pushing this Bernaysian consumerist culture on everyone, where you have to buy all these things, you have to have the mortgage, and you have to have all these cars and all this stuff, and you fill your whole life with stuff. And I'm not saying that's the reason we should live. It's just the way they've socially engineered everyone for the last 70 years. And now all of a sudden they're changing it, and so rapidly they're changing it, and they're trying to change it into this basically serfdom where you don't have anything at all, and you don't even have control over your own life, because it will be digital. And once it's digital, other people can hack it, they can access it, they can track you, they can shut off your access. And that's the way it's going to be. And that's what they've been building on and planning towards for a very, very long time. And if you actually look, going back even before World War II, the League of Nations, people thought the League of Nations, didn't work out after World War I. It's not actually true. We actually found some documents from 1940, before the United States even entered World War II. The League of Nations was talking about, what kind of world do we want to build after World War II is over? As if they already knew how everything was going to go, and they already had all the plans, in the back that they were just ready to access. And basically, if you look at how everything has gone since then, it's just now we've entered a phase where I guess they're behind schedule, so they're just going to hit rapid fire and speed it all up really fast. Because it was Agenda 21, now it's Agenda 2030. Mm-hmm. And you talk about Agenda 2030, and I guess it's because I was born in the 80s, but it's just like, that's actually not so far away anymore. It seemed like it was really far away up until a couple years ago, and then you realize, wow, that's actually only, 13 years away?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the level they're talking about. And I would say, to get us there, they're going to have to do something big. And I hate to make those kind of calls, but it seems like, to me, to really get everybody there, to get everyone so shifted into such a crazy new... I mean, they are killing the middle class. They're doing all this stuff economically. They are pushing cashless. But to really fully get us into a place where we would accept a total technological slavery like that, where you don't even own your own pants, I would say they're going to have to do something pretty big, like a world war.
You're really inspiring me to tie some things together here. And I think what they're doing is, you mentioned the consumerism mindset that they sold us for so many decades. I mean, we grew up through it, you guys. You did, and our parents did. And now the world is so debt saturated, and there's so many derivatives that the system is going to implode. I don't think they can save it. And I think what we're seeing is, if you just look at Venezuela and India as two examples, they're going to turn the people into serfs, and then they're going to give us whatever system comes next, which is going to be very authoritarian. It will be stripped of all liberty, and if the people allow it to happen, it will happen. I mean, the only thing that can save us from it is revolt. I mean, it's sort of a cocktail of 1984 meets Brave New World. They're just going to hurt us in the direction they want us to go. Once they make us cashless, once they make us so poor, look at the people of Venezuela. They don't have any power to fight back now. I mean, they're living through hyperinflation. It's so bad in Venezuela now that people are giving away their children because they can't afford to feed them. And I don't know. It's so dystopic and so worrisome, because as libertarian-minded as I am and as hopeful as I have been, as a big Ron Paul guy, it's starting to look pretty dark. It's starting to look pretty bleak.
It is, and you have all of the United Nations and Elon Musk and all the guys coming out of Bilderberg trying to push this universal basic, George Soros, universal basic income, which is where the government is just going to give people a stipend every month. And that's what you'll have. You'll have a little credit card, which can be turned off and on at a whim, everything that you have to pay for, your housing, your utilities, your food, everything, you will be completely dependent on the government for that money. Because as jobs continue to go, thanks to automation and everything else, and just the death of the middle class in general, and the outsourcing of things, I mean, as that trend continues, they're going to have a system where everybody's reliant on the government, basically, for their entire sustenance unless they can find a way to become self-sufficient. But as you've seen, I mean, even when people try to go off-grid, they arrest people, they confiscate their property, they force people back on the grid, because the whole point is to get everyone onto this control system. And just, I don't know, it's weird. We've gotten to such a point that we put out the movie Obsolete, which was a short documentary, because we're actually working on our first feature-length documentary right now, and we created that one as a way to kind of fundraise for the big one that we've been working on for the last year and a half. And just, there were people coming in there saying, you know, how great it's going to be when the government gives you free money. And all I can think about is how many different ways could we be controlled under a system like that? I mean, geez, gun confiscation, mandatory vaccinations. I mean, if you're relying on the government for your money to buy food to put on your table, then they can pretty much put any kind of limitation on that they want to. And if you want that money, you better do what they tell you to do.
And they're using mental health evaluations more and more, too, to determine who's on the side of the line, which is very creepy because at the center of it all, at the root of the meaning of mental health, it pretty much means, are you in line with the system that's there, or aren't, you know, if you can't find sanity with the way things are being run, then you are considered insane, and you could be restricted under mental health. But what's really fascinating about the 1984 aspect is the blending with Brave New World. Of course, Aldous Huxley predicted that people wouldn't live under direct tyranny because they would be lost in their own minds and they would be blissfully happy with any conditions. And what I could see coming is terrifying in a way. Our consumer culture, you know, people are living their lives on iPhones, and we're going to watch people get run over or beat in the street or arrested by SWAT teams, and people are going to be standing right there doing nothing. Because
Filming
they'll be
it.
on their phone, they'll be filming it, they'll be lost in whatever they're looking up. And maybe that's the way it goes down. They depict that in Children of Men, you know.
Yeah.
Western country, and they've got the one snotty rich kid who's just playing his game all day while people are just in cages down on the streets. And the other observation I had about Venezuela, what's terrifying is that whole crisis was triggered by one thing and one thing only, is the country's 98% dependency on the oil price. And I think Rex Tillerson, the next Secretary of State, probably had a lot to do with that personally, because the increase of natural gas discovery through fracking, especially domestically here, but also around the world, Ukraine's a big hot spot, has really changed the game with the price of oil. And they knew that there were certain countries that were more vulnerable than others because they had cast such a big social net. They had most or all of their population dependent on benefits that were coming from oil money. And I feel like they really wanted to see what would happen if they took a country that was entirely dependent on oil, that's oil rich like Venezuela, and just cut them off and drive them straight to the bottom. And it's tragic.
It's like a social
I
experiment.
follow
for
that
these
story
people.
real closely, and it's just tragic what's happened to them.
Yeah, it is absolutely tragic. And maybe if we could just take another 10 minutes, I appreciate your guys' time here. I would just say, I would just like to get your opinion on Pizzagate. We don't have to get deep into that. I would like to get your opinion on the powers behind the scenes that are controlling all of this. We can talk about Hillary Clinton, her ties to John Podesta. What I want to get at, we painted a bleak picture here, and I've been very, very hopeful that we could bring these criminals to justice. However, you know, I've said for a long time, you guys, that the world could be an Eden if we had benevolent dictators. We don't want dictators of any type, but if we had to have dictators, if they were benevolent, the world could be an Eden. But we have malevolent dictators on this planet. If you look at the possibility and what appears to be the probability of child trafficking and pedophilia leading to the highest corridors of power globally, you know, Jimmy Savile, what was going on, and he was trafficking children to the elite in London. He was friends with Prince Charles. He was knighted by the Queen. Did you guys follow the Hampstead cover-up at all with these little children, Alyssa and Gabriel?
Not specifically.
I saw one video and it was so heartbreaking. I had to, at some point I have to stop with some of this stuff because I started having nightmares. It gets really bad. But yeah, I'm familiar.
My question, I guess, is just this. It's a big one. Have you come to believe, given all your research, that there is a spiritual warfare component to what's going on here, that these people, a lot of these people at the very top, not only don't care about humanity, they despise humanity, and they want to degrade what if humans are made in God's image, they want to degrade, they want to wreck it, they want to ruin it.
It certainly seems true to me. I'm not going to speak for Aaron, but it certainly seems true to me. After watching, I mean, I felt physically ill after watching some of that spirit cooking stuff. I don't even know, even for the trendiness factor, how can you sit down in front of a life-sized cake of a human person and cut pieces off and eat it? Just what they were doing is beyond. It's not just artsy, like we're just all trendy, we're gonna get together and do something strange. That just looks, it's sick. It just looks sick. How do you do that with the red blood filling and everything? Or those casks that they had, what's her, I don't even remember. Probably can't even pronounce her name right. Abramovic?
Yeah, Marina Abramovic, and
Right.
there's that picture of her
Okay.
and Lady Gaga.
Her and Lady Gaga, and they're spooning what looks like a blood-like substance off of a naked person in a cask, or I don't even know if that was a headless body or a real person. I don't even know what that is.
I think
Who
it's
does
probably
that?
one of those cakes. Again, I don't
Was
even
that
know.
a cake?
Oh,
It looked like a real. No, that one looked real to me. I don't know. To me, it's, hey guys, we have all the money and fame and power. Let's get together this Thursday and eat fake people. Let's pretend we're cannibals and cut each other open, and we'll drink some sperm and breast milk. That sounds good, right? No, it's just to say that's just art. Especially since the lady herself, she did that whole Reddit AMA, and she said herself that when it's done in a private residence or on TV, which I thought was a pretty interesting caveat, then it's not art. Then it's actually a ritual.
It's
and
a
she
ritual,
herself
yeah.
said that. But yet the mainstream media, oh, it's just art. You guys are being conspiracy theorists. No, that's creepy and weird, and it definitely doesn't look good.
Yeah, and what strikes me about that is that, at least at the Abramovic stuff, it's such a wide net of celebrity, a lot of famous people I saw at some of those events who you wouldn't necessarily expect, but especially a lot of the pop stars who myself and plenty of others have been speculating, analyzing at past, let's say, Super Bowl performances or other major events of why are they using this kind of symbolism, why do they seem to be acting as if they're casting a spell on people and trying to slip subliminal stuff into people's heads. Well, if you look at the larger philosophy, I think they think the majority of what's going on this planet on the ground level, the consumer level, is completely profane, and they believe they have a pipeline into a higher level of it, and that they know certain things that are ritualistic that the rest of us don't, and they have the audacity to try to meddle in that and wield that against people and basically derive some form of energy and power, at least in terms of being an icon and someone that people look up to by delving into that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very Aleister Crowley inspired occultism, and so many people have pointed the finger at exactly what Marina's doing. People need to remember that the whole Pizzagate thing, people woke up to the Pizzagate thing because of the spirit cooking emails and because of the elite's connection to Marina Abramovic. How do you say her name?
Abramovic, I think.
Yeah, Abramovic. And people woke up to that, and then they dug deeper into these emails, and then you get into the whole Pizzagate thing and the connection with the pedophilia and the Best of Pizza logo, which has since been changed since Pizzagate broke. And it just gets me back to this Hampstead cover-up, which is this, okay, either it was true and the children were telling the truth, and we don't have to get into this, but I've been watching a lot of these interviews with these kids lately, or the kids made it all up, and they since have been forced to make a retraction. But there was no one.
Yeah, but some of the stuff that they were saying, I don't.
Too on point.
Would little kids even make that up?
No,
I
and
mean, I have children, and
me too.
They've never said things like
too.
that. I mean, I don't think kids just come up with that kind of stuff.
I've watched just about all of the interviews with those children, and it's too specific and too dark in the language.
Horrifying.
They describe tattoos, pentagram tattoos on these people. They describe all sorts of birthmarks, and I can tell you right now firsthand, there was no investigation. There was no legitimate investigation into the claims those kids made, and the BBC let the father go on, just like Megyn Kelly just had on Elefantis, for a PR moment. It wasn't an investigation. It was a PR opportunity to sort of revive his character and tell his version of events. Same thing with the father of these children. The mother had to flee back to Russia, and the kids went into foster care. I mean, my point here is that this Pizzagate thing is probably the second most important video series on YouTube. I cite the George Webb thing as being the most important thing because I think people can digest the criminality and the data that he's conveying, which is so fact-based. The Pizzagate thing gets really into the weeds because when you talk about pedophilia, you eventually get to Satanism. And I think it's very difficult for people to process that a lot of these people are Satanists. If the Hampstead cover-up thing is true, and all of those people, the children named by name, were involved, and they're still free, then it speaks to something much, 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 much bigger than any of us could have imagined, which gets me back to Pizzagate. It's much, much bigger than any of us could have imagined.
Because that's the thing. I mean, we recorded a video that we never put up before the election, just talking about, to each other, really, about the prospect of Hillary Clinton possibly being in that seat of power. And it's just really horrifying because and I've had to watch so many videos of this woman over the years reporting on her and everything, and I can just tell you, it's like there's no humanity there. There's no energy being given off of her as if she's a human being who has empathy and feelings. It's as if there's a void where her humanity should be. I really think you could drop a baby on the sidewalk in front of her and she wouldn't, I mean, just right there, and she probably wouldn't even really respond unless there were other people around watching her and she had to be on point for that. I don't think she has that ability. And I think a lot of these people don't. And they don't see us as human beings either. It's as if their humanity's been removed. And so, yeah, when you're talking about that level of person, it's an unfathomable level of hatred and disgust for humanity that I don't think most people can even comprehend enough to understand what the level of evil that you're trying to discuss.
And it's dark. I mean, Sean, when you spend hours and hours and hours looking into the details of this stuff, it weighs on you.
Oh, yeah.
It just weighs on you.
Yeah, no, you literally shed tears. It was like, look, I'll let you guys go here in a minute. We're almost pushing in an hour, and I sure
That's
do.
okay. It's fine.
I just appreciate you guys so much. I can't tell you how much your videos mean to those of us out there who tune into your channel. And I wish you guys could post more often because the work you guys do is absolutely top-notch. And I just love you guys. And you're right. I mean,
thank you.
Well, I mean, because look, I've said for a long time, we're all in this mess together.
We are.
But it just gets darker and darker and darker when you realize that the forces opposing us are literally capable of the worst things imaginable, biblical horrors, Sodom and Gomorrah level horrors, and the mainstream media is in bed with these people. They're not on our side exposing them. They're standing against us, calling us fake news. And it is so horrifying because literally the minute they shut down the alternative news media in this country, it's game over. The sheeple are doomed because the sheeple will never wake up. If they're going to get the State Department talking points from CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, and I'll even throw Fox News in there, ABC TV News, the sheeple are doomed. And I just want to round it out by saying, yes, when you go down the rabbit hole and you watch the children's testimony from the Hampstead cover-up, Alyssa and Gabriel, when you watch their testimonies and the things they say they had to endure, it makes you cry, and it reminds me of watching. It
absolutely does.
It does. It reminds me of watching Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which absolutely devastated me when I watched that movie. Anybody who hasn't seen it ought to watch it. But I'd say the good news is Hillary the Witch Clinton did not get back into the White House, which I think is a glimmer of hope. It has to be, because we would be doomed if the witch got back in there.
I agree with that much, at least. I mean, at least she's not in there. I don't know. The signs coming out of Trump and the things that I've read about him don't exactly make me trust him all that much. I know some people are just so everything he does is great no matter what. I can't say that yet. I don't know why anyone would. I think we should wait and see what we're actually dealing with. But yes, I feel like if they are able to fully shut down the alternative media the way that it looks like they're trying to do, then it's not just game over. It's an unimaginable new level of crime that will be able to be committed because there will be no watching eyes. There'll be no way to expose it. I mean, at least right now with the alternative media, we have them in a reactionary position. They have to, even with this Pizzagate thing and all the sloppy going on with Megyn Kelly, that was ridiculous.
But with that character walking into the place with the gun, it just shows you what they're willing to take it to.
Yeah.
And I think
that
they're
was
more
such
dangerous
a
than ever right now. And there could be another 9/11 style thing. There could be.
This is the thing.
I don't know when they're planning it, but
they're just the at least right now with us, they have to react, even if their reaction looks ridiculous, all the stuff that they're doing. But if we're not here to be able to even call and come out on anything, and they just shut it all down, which is really, if you think about it, computers are a military design. That they came from the military. The internet is from DARPA. So it was always meant to be a loop of communication and control. That is always what it was put in place for. I honestly believe that computers and the internet never came to us ever without being weaponized first. I believe they always were. And the whole point, I think, now is to really start reining that in and shutting it down. And it's so beyond even Brave New World in 1984, I think, at this point. And if you research all that, and that's part of what we've been researching for this feature-length documentary we've been working on, is tracing back some of this stuff. And if you look into that and you really look at what the plans have been and how they've laid them out and the things that they've done, starting before World War II and then going into the passage of the National Security Act and, the CIA and the NSA and all the things that have happened since then. I mean, this has all been leading us towards this moment that we're living through, and it's kind of an amazing time, but it is pretty scary. And I have a glimmer of hope because Hillary's not in there too, but I don't have the Obama hope and change Trump train hope that I think some people do, because I've just been here for so long now that I've seen the way that things have been. And I do not believe that the system is such that anyone can get in there and change it. I don't think that that's possible. So I think that there's, the government that we see, and then there's the shadow government that's there. And I'm pretty sure that one is not going to let the other do anything to it. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll just have to see. I wish I could. People always want that hopeful thing that you can leave on, like a hopeful note. And lately, I have to honestly tell you, with all the stuff that we've been researching, and yeah, the Pizzagate thing, that was a solid several weeks of my life where I just was like, oh my God, this is horrifying. I just, I mean, the more you look into that, just the more evident things become, and it's just so disgusting and so disturbing. And I think it just definitely goes well beyond anything that we can even imagine. Even us who research this stuff all the time could even imagine. And yeah, I feel like right now they're trying to pull some of this in-game type of stuff with shutting down the alternative media and advancing all this war agenda, because there has to be a catalyst to get us to the system that they have been designing now for 70 years. There has to be something that will get us there. They can't just they've been doing the slow route, because if you just do things progressively and inch it in, people get adjusted. And even though it's messed up and, it's taking away liberties and freedom and stuff, people get used to it if you inch it by inch it by inch it. I really think this is why all the Snowden revelations came out too, by the way, just to get people really accustomed to the fact that you are being tracked and traced and watched, and everything you do online is being monitored, and get people used to that. And at first, when that came out, everyone, people who had been researching for a while, they're like, oh, that's not a surprise. I mean, Snowden didn't tell us anything we didn't already really know. It just verified things that we believed to be true. But for other people, it was a real shock. Now everyone's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, you can go out in public now and just openly film people, and they don't even care. No, it's like privacy. They've eradicated it, and they're eradicating freedom along with it, because they have to get us to this system that's been designed. It's a technological control grid. It's planet-wide, and that's what's going to happen. And all of these things are part of it. And I think what happened with the Pizzagate stuff, if you want to know my honest opinion, is a lot of that stuff was super damning. It cannot be explained. I mean, if you read some of the WikiLeaks emails that are being referenced here, where they talk about playing dominoes on cheese, I mean, that's disgusting, okay? It doesn't make any sense. In any other context, it makes no sense. It has to be code for something, because you wouldn't just say things like that. It doesn't make any sense. So there's all that stuff that comes out, and I think that at some point they knew that this stuff was coming out. They knew that it was very damning, and so they basically tried to do almost like a honey trap thing so that they could twist it around and then demonize the alternative media further and wrap it into this fake news thing, because it all happened at the same time, And they were like, see how damaging fake news is? It's hurting this poor business owner and these poor people, but never really addressing the actual concerns behind it, just calling it fake never addressing. It was almost like a way to further demonize everyone and have another excuse to try and shut down the alternative media.
Yeah, that's right. Megyn Kelly has on James Alefantis and gives him the opportunity to have this PR conversation, not an interview. And she never asks him about his Instagram, Jimmy Comet. She never asks him about the cement-walled kill room, the words described on his Instagram page, in which he then responded to somebody saying #murder. That seems to be a conversation worth having. But we can't count on the mainstream media having that conversation. We can
that
only
guy's account is so blatant and out in the open. I mean, it's almost, did he expect that no one would ever notice that, or was he trying
they're
to
so comfortable. They're hiding
grab
in the
attention?
they're hiding in the wide open. They're so comfortable. And it was the Pizzagate emails. See, when you mentioned the pizza and the cheese and all of that, the language they were using, the coded language, it does make sense if you understand that those are words used in pedophile circles to describe little boys, little girls, etc., etc. Then you read the emails, and it's horrifying, right?
It's so disgusting.
And that's why I'm gonna round this out with a tiny, teeny, tiny glimmer of hope, and it's what I started with, and it's this: can you imagine people like, for instance, my friend over there on Twitter, Brittany Pettibone, or Donald Trump, the president-elect, getting on Fox News or CNN and being allowed to say, and I quote, "Got to do something about these missing children grabbed by the perverts. Too many incidents, fast trial, death penalty," end quote. Now, you can say what you want about Donald J. Trump. We don't know what he's going to do, but I know for a fact he would never be allowed on CNN to talk about that topic.
No.
So thank God for that, because there is truth getting out.
At least, yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, that's what the media is supposed to be, like the fourth unspoken check and balance, right? But it's just, it's not, it doesn't exist anymore. And all we have now is this infiltrated establishment media that's been that way for decades, but now it's become so glaringly obvious. I think they actually did a thing on CNN the other day where they said there's only 10% trust in the media. They did a poll. It was like 10% of America trusts the mainstream media anymore. Mm-hmm. So I guess the reason that I'm concerned is just that we are to that point, and I know a lot of other people in the alternative media have said this, but I really do see it. If you just look at history and you look at the things that are going on, we're to a point, we're beyond the point, we're past the point now where revolutions have happened. And I don't know if it's just because we've all gotten so complacent or we're all victims of learned helplessness in this country, but it really seems to me that how much more are people going to take with the system as it is and the clampdown that's happening and the way that things are being shut off? I mean, is everyone just going to stand idly by and put up with that? I don't know. Is there a level that it gets to? Or will they ultimately just have to pull the trigger on some kind of war scenario to just scare everybody into just a totally different mindset to paradigm shift us all? I don't know. I don't know what's coming. I have the same glimmer of hope that you do, and so I guess that's what we have for now. But I think as long as we just keep talking, I mean, I can't imagine once YouTube and Facebook and Twitter start clamping down on everyone, I mean, I think people will just migrate somewhere else, and they'll keep doing it until there's no other options anymore, Yeah. So I just don't see how the system, even the way that they've built it, even the plans, the best laid plans that they've had, I just don't see how they can shut everybody up.
Well, let me ask you guys this as we part ways here. What is the best way that listeners can support you guys? Tell us how people can get obsolete. Tell us about your website. I know people are very into not watching ads on YouTube videos. I'm here to tell you, if you let an ad play, it helps the producer. And more and more, more and more often, YouTube is, as we heard early on in this call, YouTube, thanks to Google and AdSense, is deeming much of the work that I do not advertising friendly. So let an ad play. It probably won't kill you. I mean, that's what you get when you watch network TV, and here we only ask you to watch 1 or 2 ads. How do we best support you guys and what you're trying to do?
It would help to watch an ad. We've put Obsolete, which is our first feature film, and it deals with a lot of the economic issues, the long-term population issues. We put it for free on Amazon Prime, which, it's another platform. It's corporate and controlled. It's different from YouTube, so we're going to kind of hedge our basket.
Yeah, YouTube shuts us down all the time.
Our website has been shut down. We've been hacked multiple times recently. I know you have too, Sean, and it just goes with the times. And we're just going to keep speaking out where we can.
We're youtube.com/truthstreammedia, and our website's truthstreammedia.com. And if you ever go to it and you just see a blank white screen or a weird gobbledygook text, it's because we've been hacked again. So, which has been happening with increasing frequency in the last few weeks.
It's a strange honor, I guess. We've all been through it.
Yeah. Well, that prop or not list, I said early on, it's a badge of honor, but it also is a target list. And that's the problem. And now this criminal government has passed this authorization through the NDAA to fund an apparatus to come after all of us. So I think it'll probably get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. So that does lead me to the final question. Do you guys have a donate button? I've been thinking about implementing one because I've been proud to never have one, but it's getting to the point where that might become necessary. I do have 2 contributors that help me out with SGT Report, and I pay them monthly. Do you guys have a donate button?
We have a donate button on our website, and we put our our donate link in our YouTube videos. Yeah, because we don't sell anything. I know there are sites that sell stuff. We don't have any of that, so we do the donate button. But we don't ever really ask for donations. We just put it there because we had people asking us if we had one. So then we.
But it wouldn't take much. There's a lot of listeners out there, and we're reaching a lot of people right now. And if everyone kind of chipped in like a buck or something, unfortunately, it's just a few people who are overly generous, and that's great. But I would never want to.
Yeah, I hate asking people for anything, and I hate trying to sell stuff. It's just you have to. I mean, with all the time and effort that it takes. Like for you doing interviews and editing video takes a long time, and writing articles, all this stuff, it takes a lot of time. It's a job. But it's just something that all of us seem very compelled to do. I just can't imagine doing anything else with myself.
Yeah.
So so that's we do have a donate button, and we have a PO box too. And really, I think the best thing is just the letters of encouragement that we've gotten recently.
Yeah, I saw your video that you read that letter of encouragement. It made an impact on you. I love getting stuff like that from people.
Man, I was standing in the post office crying like a baby. It really was. And so I had to do a video on it later because that meant so much to me. Because it's just been, I don't know. Do you feel this too? That ever since the election, it's almost like a switch somewhere has been flipped and everything is just really weird. I feel every single day this way now. Like everything has just gotten strange. I mean, for example, I work over at the Daily Sheeple as well. I write articles over there, and I'm the editor for that site. And I've noticed that we have like a huge number of trolls now on social media that are just attacking pretty much anything we put up. Mm-hmm. Just a huge onslaught of trolls ever since this prop or not thing happened in the election and all that. And it's almost like the liberty-minded crowd has disappeared. Or something is happening with that because it's just, I don't know. It's really strange though.
Yeah.
So tons of attacks, lots of hacking, lots of blocked links, and it's just been like that. And you're right. I think it is going to get worse before it gets better. But yeah, so we have a donate, but we don't ask for anything. I mean, really, it just means a lot that we're still able to share this information at this point. Because I see it coming where they're going to clamp down on it more and more. I think what we need to all do is think of what we're going to do to continue to get this information out there once they fully implement some of these total censorship plans they have got going on.
Yeah, I've had that unsettled feeling too for a long time now, and it reminds me of my friend James Perloff's work, Truth is a Lonely Warrior, and so many of us out there are speaking truth, and we're driven to do it because I like to say we're wired correctly, unlike these people who oppose us who literally are demonic. And as we all wake up to that, this all only becomes more and more horrifying. So, well, we can hope for the best. All of this has increased my faith. It's given me more faith. Spiritual
absolutely.
Faith, because as I see what our enemies believe, I realize that there is one heck of a lot of biblical truth, and it just makes me realize that spiritual warfare on this planet is alive and well. A lot of the listeners don't like it when I say that, and they say, please don't bring God into these conversations, but more and more I don't know how not to. Because I know that the forces aligned against us believe in an entity that's very, very dark. Very dark.
And that's the thing. People don't have to believe in God if they don't want to, But the people that are doing the things that we're discussing, they sure as hell believe in Satan. So,
Yeah.
and they're working under his name to do some pretty crazy, horrible, nasty, disgusting things. So we have to all keep talking. We just have to keep talking. It's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this. More than an hour now. I really appreciate you guys. And our guests have been Aaron Dykes and Melissa Dykes. And you can find them at TruthStream Media on YouTube and, of course, truthstreammedia.com. Guys, thanks so very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And guys, thanks so much for listening. And, thanks for sticking with us during this conversation. If it meant anything to you, hit the like button and please do share it within your sphere of influence on social media. Spread it far and wide. We really appreciate your support. Check us out at sgtreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com for real news 24/7. Have a happy new year. God bless.
I think that we just don't realize what psychopaths these people are. Psychopaths have a known phenomenon called duper's delight. They love to push in their victim's face what they're doing and be lying about it and get away with it.